ribbons. These are your ribbons. You can use like really fine sort of ribbon, which is transparent. You can see through it. Really great for wedding work. These sorts of things are great, just like sheer, what do you call sheer ribbon? Really great for just doing little tiny bows, and we'll definitely do a lesson on bows because bows are essential and something that you'll use loads and loads. And this fine little one is just on a roll, so a cheap, pretty, like just a cheap roll. I don't even know how much it cost me. It might have cost me $6 maybe for the roll, but that's going to last me forever. If I look after that, that'll stay white, and that is perfect for buttonholes, for ribbon, for hair circlets, which we'll make in another video, all sorts of things. So it's quite thin, but you can get thinner than that again, like really thin. And they're really nice for just little intricate kind of things like, you know, buttonholes and flower girls and things like that. But this is, get some of this stuff, sheer, see through it. Really great stuff. I use it for everything. Okay, so going back to wires, because, oops, there goes my parafilm. Going back to wires again, so, which I kind of got a bit off track. So these are your different gauges in wires. So when we were talking before about your 22, which is this one here, you might be able to see it, but you can see the different widths. Now your 18 gauge, which is that one right at the bottom, is a really thick wire. And back in the day, we used to do a lot of wiring techniques for funeral work, and you don't really do that much anymore, but they are still really useful. If you can get hold of a small bundle of 18 gauge wires, they are really good just to make little hairpins, which we'll talk more of when we get around to our wiring techniques. They're really great for heaps of things, like for doing wreaths, making laurel wreaths for Anzac Day and things like that. I know you can buy them, but you can make them also. So if you're doing it, trying to keep them, you know, your costs down, you just buy a bundle of these, a small bundle of these, and then you might cut them up into however many pieces. You probably need about that much to make a hairpin. And so for this particular wire, it's obviously cut, it's not the full length. You might get 3 or 4 hairpins out of it, okay, for a proper length. So your 22 gauge, and then you've got your 24 gauge, 26 gauge. 26 gauge is another wire that you have to have. It's essential for wiring different leaves and flowers. So pretty much your main wires that you need are a 22, which is a thicker wire, so you can still bend it quite easily, but it's for, you know, you can double over the thickness to do like a long hairpin when you need a bit more support, or you can even put 2 22 gauge wires together, parafilm them together, which is something I'll show you if you don't have a thicker wire. So there's lots of ways around keeping your costs down. These are green wires as well. Back in the day, we never had green wires. Like I'm talking when I first started floristry, which was in the 1990s, mid-1990s. So we only had silver wire, which I've still got some of. It's just silver, pretty much the same thing, but it's just silver. A lot more florists these days use the green wire because it resembles a green stem, like roses and things, which is your main thing that you do wire these days. Not everyone does, although I highly recommend it. They'll make your flowers last longer. And then these ones are just your 26 gauge. So they're just, I don't know whether you probably can't really tell the difference between the two. Probably a little bit hard to see. Maybe on a piece of paper, you might be able to see it a little bit easier. Probably can't really. But anyway, one's quite thin and it's a lot more maneuverable. There is another grade that is handy as well, which is your 28 gauge again. So when you're thinking about wire and your thickness in wires, just think the lower the number, the thicker the wire. Okay, so the thicker the wire, the harder to bend. Your thicker wires you use for heavier plants, heavier stems. Your thinner the wire, this is 20, actually this is 26. That might even be a 22. I've just cut them down. Oh, that wouldn't surprise me. I've only just moved like 3 months ago, and I haven't really pulled out my florist supplies until today, until doing this video. So that is actually a 22 gauge. So I'll just grab a 20. I'll show you what I mean by a thinner wire. Sorry. Can find them. Yeah. So there's one there. Sorry guys, I didn't mean to do that. So that's your thin wire. That's your 26. I should have known that just by playing with it, because I was like, it's a bit heavy. Anyway, so you might be able to tell now maybe. That one's a little bit like that one is your 26 gauge, which is your thinner wire, and this one's your 22 gauge. Duh. Anyway, other things that you need to have in your essential kit. Well, I wouldn't say essential kit, but if you're doing a lot of roses and you're going to be getting into wedding flower work or even just gift giving and stuff, it's just worth buying a little rose. A rose. What are they called? Rose. Oh, massive blank. Rose dethorner. They're not called that. Rose stripper. That's what they're called. Rose stripper. I've got two. So I've got one for more sort of thinner kind of stems, and these are more plastic. They're a bit kinder to the rose. You'd be a little bit careful because they do have teeth. And so you can imagine a stem in there. So I've just picked some stems ready for my next lesson. So let's just pretend this is has got roses on it. So when you're stripping it, you're pulling them down and then the roses are coming off, okay? Particularly pertinent for diabetics. You've got to be very careful because I believe that diabetics should not handle roses. Okay, so you've got to do it enough, but not too much, where you're going to be stripping the actual stem itself. Okay, you can easily break roses. They're so easy to break, especially the thinner ones. So anyway, you've got a bit more experience. If you're a bit more experienced, this is a little bit harder to use. But again, it's metal, a little bit, they're great for real tough stems. Some really good quality rose out there, you might need to use these. I started off with these for many years, and then I discovered the plastic ones. I use them both interchangeably, just depending on how thick my rose stem is. Two more things that we will use. Highly recommend that you get some of these. There are ways around them, but they don't work as well. Wrist corsage holders. So these, I'm sure there's an updated version. These, I mean, going back a few years now, probably, I don't know, 12 years, 10 years I've had these for, maybe 10 years. And what happens is you make the corsage. So this goes on your wrist, obviously for young girls, it goes on their wrist. The flowers go on there, so you hot glue it. Another thing that I just have to get is a hot glue gun, which I haven't included in this video, but anyway, so you can hot glue it on there. You grab your wires again, and you basically just wire it so it stays on there. And then these little things, which I won't do because it'll break it, these fold in, okay? These fold in and they kind of hug around the stem, okay? So they come in both ways, and you don't see this piece of metal because it's covered with the flowers, and you make sure you don't see it because you cover your mechanics. So you cover all those pieces. So one thing that you need to get, so they just come in a little pack. I don't have many left now. I've just kind of put them in one of these Ziploc bag things, but really good to have. Another thing that you need to have, but again, not essential, you can get around it, are some buttonhole holders. Now, over the years, I believe they've got quite cheap, and they're not as good. These are the newer sort of style. When saying that, they're probably about 10 years old again, because I haven't done floristry for a while. These are just like little buttonhole stands, I guess, and you pretty much hot glue them on and wire them on. So yeah, and then there's just like a little pin at the back that goes into the man's jacket, or a woman's jacket. It doesn't have to be just for men, but it generally is. and your buttonhole shouldn't really exceed that tip, although some of them do, but it's not the right thing to do. Okay, this is the original one that I've kept because I just can't find them anymore, and they are really awesome. They're stronger. They're made of a different kind of plastic. They have a better clip on them. They've never come off, whereas these ones have the clip has come off at times. So this bit can fall off and pull out. But anyway, they were the only ones that I could get at the time when I was desperate to get some. So I had to get these. So besides the hot glue gun, that's probably the main things that you need to have your florist kit, have your flower kit. If you've got, have a bit of a look around your neighborhood as well and work out what gardens can you take stuff from. And you don't always have to ask if they're in the alleyways and things like that. You don't need to ask. But if you do see someone nearby and they've got a beautiful garden, just ask them, hey, I'm just doing some floristry. Is it possible, with your permission, if I can just get a few leaves at a time and possibly just come and have a look at your garden? I'd love you to show me around. And if you know of any tips and tricks, I'd love to learn from you. So people are really happy. I find most gardeners are pretty easy, relaxed, kind of chilled people. They're always quite happy to share their knowledge with you. We'll get more into that in another video because cut flowers are very different to just garden flowers. So I hope you found that video useful. If you've got anything that you want to ask me or whatever, just put it in a comment box and I'm really happy to answer you. All right, and the next video I'm going to be doing is looking at wiring techniques just for basic greenery. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.